Hi, kiddos. You had said that you wanted me to finish reading Indian in the Cupboard since we had started reading it before school was out. And so I thought I would read maybe a little bit every day and post the link, and you guys can listen to the rest of the story. Before we start, I want to recap what we already read. So remember, Omri is our little boy who's the main character, and his best friend Patrick gave him a toy Indian for his birthday. And he also received a cupboard. When he got home at night, he put the little Indian into his cupboard and locked it with a key. And when he woke up in the morning and opened it, the Indian had come to life. So Omri's trying to figure out what to do with this little Indian. He's giving him food, and he's trying to help see if he can give him a house. And he tried putting a car into the cupboard, but remember, that was metal and it did not turn real. But when he put in the fake teepee, that did turn real. So we left off right when Omri was trying to make sure that he could get the little Indian, Little Bear, some food. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading from where we left off, and I hope you guys enjoy listening. Little Bears, sorry, I'm going to start from up here. I'll have to buy plastic ones, bows and arrows. What else? Would you like a horse? Horse? Little Bear seemed surprised. Don't you ride? I thought all Indians rode. Little Bear shook his head. Iroquois walk. But wouldn't you like to ride? Little Bear stood, quite still, frowning, wrestling with this novel idea. At last he said, maybe. Show horse, then I see. Again, Omri rummaged in the biscuit tin. There were a number of horses here, big heavy ones for carrying armored knights, smaller ones for pulling carriages, several cavalry horses. Those might be the best. Omri arranged five or six of various sizes and colors for Little Bear, whose black eyes began to shine. I have, he said promptly. You mean all of them? Little Bear nodded hungrily. No, that's too much. I can't have herds of horses galloping all over my room. You can choose one. One, said Little Bear sadly. One. Little Bear then made a very thorough examination of every horse, feeling their legs, running his hands over their rumps, looking straight into their plastic faces. At last he selected a smallish brown horse with 2 white feet that had originally carried a man with a curved sword. Omri lifted the cupboard onto the floor, shut the horse in, and turned the key. Almost at once they could hear the clatter of tiny hooves on metal. They looked at each other with joyful faces. Open, open door, commanded Little Bear. Omri lost no time in doing so. There, prancing and pawing the white paint, was a lovely, shiny-coated little brown horse. As the door swung open, he shied nervously, turning his face and pricking his ears so far forward they almost met over his forelock. His tiny nostrils flared, and his black tail plumbed above his haunches as he gave a high, shrill neigh. "Aye!" cried Little Bear. In a moment he had vaulted over the bottom edge of the cupboard, and as the horse reared in fright, jumped into the air under its flying hooves and grasped the leather reins. The horse fought to free its head, but Little Bear hung on with both hands. Even as the horse plunged and bucked, the Indian had moved from front to the side. Grasping the high pommel of the saddle, he swung himself onto it. He ignored the stirrups, holding on by gripping with his knees. The horse flung himself back on his haunches, then threw himself forward in a mighty buck, head low, heels flying. To Omri's dismay, Little Bear, instead of clinging on, somehow came loose and flew through the air in a curve, landing on the carpet just beyond the edge of the cupboard. Omri thought his neck must be broken, but he had landed in a sort of somersault and was instantly on his feet again. Then he turned to Omri, his face shining with happiness. "Crazy horse!" he cried with fierce delight. The crazy horse was meanwhile standing quite still, reins hanging loose, looking watchfully at the Indian through wild eyes. Little Bear made no sudden moves. He stood quite still for a long time, just looking at the horse. Then so slowly you could scarcely notice, he edged toward him, making strange hissing sounds between his clenched teeth that almost seemed to hypnotize the horse. Inch by inch he moved softly, cautiously, until he and the horse stood almost nose to nose. Then quite calmly Little Bear reached up and laid his hand on the horse's neck. That was all. He did not hold the reins. The horse could have jumped away, but he didn't. He raised his nose a little so that he and the Indian seemed to be breathing into each other's nostrils. Ew. Then in a quiet voice, Little Bear said, "Now, horse, mine. Crazy Horse, mine." Still moving slowly, though not as slowly as before, he took the reins and moved alongside the horse. After a certain amount of time of fiddling, he found out how to unbuckle the straps that held the Arabian saddle and lifted it off, lying it on the floor. The horse snorted and tossed his head but did not move, hissing gently now. The Indian first leaned his weight against the horse's side, then lifted himself up by his arms until he was astride. Letting the reins hang loose on the horse's neck, he squeezed with his legs. The horse moved forward, as tame and obedient as you please, and the pair rode once around the inside of the cupboard as if it had been a circus arena. So if we take a minute and look, you can see there's Little Bear and his horse now, who he's calling Crazy Horse, and he seemed to tame him pretty fast there. Okay. Suddenly, Little Bear caught up the reins and pulled them to one side, turning the horse's head at the same time, kicking him sharply. The horse wheeled and bounded forward toward the edge of the cupboard. This metal rim was up to the horse's small chest, like a 5-barred gate to a full-sized horse. There was no room to ride straight at it from the back of the cupboard to the front, so Little Bear rode diagonally, a very difficult angle, yet the horse cleared it in a flying leap. Omri realized at once that the carpet was too soft for him. His feet sank into it like soft sand. "Need ground, not blanket," said Little Bear sternly. "Blanket not good for ride." Omri looked at his clock. It was still only a little after 6 in the morning, at least another hour before everyone else would be up. "I could take you outside," he said hesitantly. "Good," said Little Bear, "but not touch horse. You touch, much fear." Omri quickly found a small cardboard box that had held a matchbox car. It had even had a sort of window through which he could see what was happening. He laid it on the carpet, and the ends flap were open. Little Bear rode the horse into the box, and Omri carefully shut the end up and even more carefully lifted it. Then, in his bare feet, he carried the box slowly down the stairs and let himself out through the back door. It was a lovely, fresh spring morning. Omri stood on the back steps with the box in his hands, looking round for a suitable spot. The lawn wasn't much good. The grass would be over the Indian's head in most places. But the path was beaten earth and small stones, real riding ground if they were careful. Omri walked to the path and laid the matchbox carton down. For a moment he hesitated. Could the Indian run away? How fast could such a small little horse run? As fast as a mouse? If so, and they wanted to escape, Omri wouldn't be able to catch them. A cat, on the other hand, would. Omri knelt on the path in his pajamas and put his face to the window in the box. The Indian stood inside, holding the horse's head. "Little Bear, we're outdoors now. I'm going to let you out to ride, but remember, you're not on a prairie now. There are mountain lions here, but they're big enough to swallow you whole and the horse too. Don't run away. You wouldn't survive. Do you understand?" Little Bear looked at him steadily and nodded. Omri opened the flap. An Indian and the horse stepped out onto the morning sunlight. Do you think there's really mountain lions outside of Omri's house? I wonder what Omri was talking about when he told Little Bear that there were mountain lions. Well, that is the end of that chapter for today. So, I can't wait to read the next chapter to share with you guys in the adventure of Omri and Little Bear, and now Crazy Horse. See you next time.